Think back, just for a second, to when you were maybe 6 or 7 years old.
Oh, to be that age again, right.
Right. Like, it's a Saturday morning, you wake up, and honestly, before your feet even hit the floor, there is this feeling in your chest.
Yeah, that pure, unadulterated excitement.
Exactly. And the fascinating thing about that childhood feeling is that you aren't excited about anything specific.
No, not at all. You haven't checked your email, you haven't
Huh?
looked at a bank account, nobody has praised you yet.
You're just excited to be awake.
Yeah, you possess this baseline state of joy that literally requires zero external input. You just want to explore.
You're eager for the day. But then, well, we grow up. And suddenly, waking up feels entirely different.
It feels like a negotiation with gravity.
That is so accurate. We tell ourselves it's just, the natural stress of being an adult. We have to pay the bills, answer the emails, manage the calendar.
It is so easy to assume that joy is simply crowded out by responsibility.
It really is. So today on our deep dive, we are unpacking a fascinating chapter from a text on the science of meditation. Because we want to answer a question I think we all secretly ask ourselves.
Which is, why does that pure, effortless joy we felt as kids seem to just completely vanish as we get older?
Okay, let's unpack this. Because the research makes a really surprising and honestly kind of shocking argument right out of the gate.
It really does. It flips everything we assume upside down.
Yeah, it argues that our loss of joy isn't just about the fact that life is inherently stressful now. It's actually a measurable biological degradation happening inside our bodies,
But, and this is key, we actually have the power to hack it.
which is wild. But before we get to the biological hack, we need to define our terms, right?
We do. We have to understand exactly what kind of joy we've lost. Because it is very easy to confuse the joy we had as children with the joy we, still occasionally feel as adults.
Because adults do feel happy sometimes. We aren't just miserable all the time.
Right. They are mechanically very different things, though. The text draws a very sharp distinction between two types of happiness: conditional and unconditional.
And what we usually experience as adults is almost entirely conditional happiness, isn't it?
Basically, yes. Conditional happiness is exactly what it sounds like. It is joy tied to specific causes or events.
Like you get praised by a boss or accepted into a dream school.
Exactly. Or you hit a financial milestone. You feel fantastic, right? But that feeling is entirely dependent on that external event occurring and, crucially, remaining stable.
I like to think of conditional happiness as relying on a sugar rush for energy, whereas unconditional happiness is like having a naturally fast metabolism.
Oh, that's a great way to put it.
Yeah, because when you rely on conditional happiness, you are basically renting your joy from your circumstances, and the landlord can raise the rent or evict you at any time.
The moment those external conditions change.
Like your boss criticizes you the next day.
Right. The happiness is instantly gone. It is
Uh-huh.
deeply transactional and inherently fleeting.
Just a candle flickering out in the wind.
Yes, exactly like that. Unconditional happiness, on the other hand, is that Saturday morning childhood feeling. It is an enduring, quiet, unshakable joy.
That arises without any particular reason.
It arises from within you, totally immune to the fluctuations of the outside world.
I hear that, but I have to push back a little here. Is the loss of that unconditional happiness really a profound mystery?
What do you mean?
Well, if we think about the sheer weight of modern existence, the mortgages, the societal expectations, the 24/7 news cycle, I mean, it feels like common sense that we'd lose that carefree joy.
Because we are just battered by the environment.
Yeah. Isn't it simply because adults are beaten down by the pressures and distractions of modern life?
This raises an important question. It's about cause and effect. If external stress and being busy were the sole factors stripping away our joy, then people who are completely financially secure would be immune.
Oh, I see where you're going.
Right. Individuals with absolutely no daily worries, no alarm clocks, no financial strain, they would naturally revert to that state of unconditional happiness.
And we see all the time that they don't.
They absolutely don't.
People who seemingly have everything, who have removed all the conditional stressors from their lives, often still feel deeply unfulfilled.
Sometimes they even fall into deeper emotional suffering.
Right, because the distraction of the hustle is gone, and they're left alone with their internal state.
Which means the loss of unconditional joy cannot simply be a psychological response to external stressors. There has to be a deeper physical root cause.
So we have to shift our perspective away from psychology and look squarely at our biology.
Exactly. We have to examine what is physically happening inside the body as we age, because the research presents this fascinating hypothesis that our emotional capacity is literally governed by our physiological and biochemical states.
We tend to romanticize our feelings so much. We think of emotions as these abstract clouds floating in our minds.
Or some mystical state of being, but biologically they're constructed from physical variables. We are talking about physiological states like your heart rate, your blood pressure, your respiratory rate.
Which all change when you're stressed.
Right. When your sympathetic nervous system is engaged, your heart beats faster, your breathing is shallow. It is physically impossible to feel that deep, unconditional joy when your body is braced for a tiger attack.
And even more crucially, we have to look at the biochemical factors, the neurotransmitters.
The chemical recipe being mixed in our bodies, serotonin, dopamine, endorphins, adrenaline.
And inadequate production of these specific chemicals leads directly to a reduction in our sense of well-being, doesn't it?
It does. Over time, a persistent deficiency in these neurotransmitters is what opens the door to chronic anxiety and depression. Dopamine, for instance, isn't just about reward.
It's about motivation and baseline energy. And the vital connection here is that the secretion and regulation of these chemicals, particularly dopamine, is intimately linked to our sleep architecture.
That's the real culprit. A lack of sleep lowers your baseline dopamine levels, leading to a low mood and emotional fatigue. You literally lack the physical material required to feel energized and joyful.
Wow. But conversely, sufficient high-quality sleep regulates that dopamine balance,
Yes, it flushes out metabolic waste in the brain and resets the receptors.
which makes total sense when you think about it. Those rare times as an adult where you wake up and actually feel amazing, they almost always follow a truly incredible night of deep restorative sleep.
But the statistics on what happens to our sleep architecture as we age are, well, they're staggering.
Tell me about it.
Sleep research shows that our nights are divided into cycles: light sleep, rapid eye movement or REM sleep, and deep sleep. Deep sleep is the critical indicator for joy.
Okay, so what exactly happens during deep sleep?
During deep sleep, your brain waves slow down into long, rolling delta waves. Your heart rate drops, your blood pressure lowers, and your body finally shifts entirely out of that sympathetic fight-or-flight mode.
And into the parasympathetic rest and digest mode.
Exactly. This specific environment is what your brain requires to synthesize and replenish those vital neurotransmitters.
So let's talk numbers, because they clarify the problem perfectly. In a healthy young adult, deep sleep makes up about 20% of their night.
Right.
So if you sleep for 8 hours, you are getting approximately 96 minutes of deep sleep. 96 minutes of pure biochemical reset.
But by the time an average adult hits age 65, that 96 minutes shrinks dramatically.
How much?
It plummets down to just 30 minutes a night.
Oh, wow. So what does this all mean? It means we aren't just tired because we can't sleep. We are fundamentally losing our biological capacity for joy.
Because the physical factory that makes our joy chemicals, our deep sleep, is downsizing its operations as we get older.
We are actually losing the biological machinery required to feel that Saturday morning feeling. That is terrifying.
Our innate access to pure joy is blocked by our aging biology. And we cannot pause the fast pace of modern life. And we certainly cannot reverse our age to magically fix our sleep architecture.
So we are left with a serious dilemma. Our bodies are naturally producing less of the deep rest we need. So how do we manually override that decay? How do we reclaim that joy?
This brings us to the core solution in the text, the concept of meditation as conscious sleep.
Conscious sleep. I like the sound of that.
Biologically speaking, meditation allows the body to enter a sleep-like state. Through specific breathing techniques and stillness, you manually trigger the parasympathetic nervous system,
So your heart rate slows, your blood pressure drops.
and your brain begins to produce alpha and theta waves, which are the exact same frequencies seen in the early stages of deep sleep.
But crucially, while the body is in this sleep-like state, the mind remains completely awake.
Yes. In this state, the body receives the exact same restorative benefits that come from high-quality deep sleep. The physical recovery, the emotional balance, the hormonal regulation.
The dopamine balancing.
Yeah.
It all happens. Plus, you can do it anytime, anywhere, in any posture.
It serves as a direct physiological substitute for the deep sleep we are losing as we age.
Wait, hold on. If we're just talking about resting the body and getting into those slow brainwave states, how is this different from me just taking a 20-minute nap in my office chair?
That's a common question.
I mean, why does the fact that I'm staying awake matter so much to the outcome? Is it just a glorified nap?
What's fascinating here is that the conscious awareness is the entire key to the transformation. When you nap, you are unconscious. You are checked out. Your
Right.
body might rest, but your mind is just paused. When you wake up, your brain immediately resumes its old stressful thought patterns.
Wow.
But when you meditate, your body is resting as deeply as if it were asleep, but your consciousness remains alert and observing. You are actively watching your mind exist without the need for external stimulation.
Oh, I see. Because your body is flooded with those restorative feel-good chemicals while you are fully conscious, you actually experience the feeling of joy without any external trigger.
Exactly.
Hmm.
You realize in real time that you don't need a promotion or a new car to feel good. The awake awareness allows us to actively rewire our waking perspective.
It transforms what would otherwise just be a biological reset into a profound philosophical shift.
Because if you only fix the biology, say, with a perfect nap or a hypothetical pill, you might feel better temporarily, but your waking mind will still be trapped in its old habits.
It will still be fiercely attached to external conditions. But meditation, because the mind is awake, helps sever that psychological dependency while the body heals.
There is a fantastic historical perspective on this trap of conditional happiness involving the philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer.
Oh yeah, he famously claimed that human life swings like a pendulum backward and forward between pain and boredom.
A famously bleak assessment of human existence, I must say.
Seriously. But the idea is that when we desire something, we are in pain because we lack it.
And then once we attain it, the satisfaction fades and we sink into boredom until a new desire arises.
It's completely bleak, but it highlights a massive blind spot. Because why didn't he mention happiness in that pendulum? Schopenhauer certainly experienced joy at some point in his life.
He must have. But what tends to linger in our memories is usually conditional happiness. And because conditional happiness is just renting space in our minds, it fades incredibly fast.
It just gets swallowed up by the pain of wanting and the boredom of having.
Right. Schopenhauer was evaluating life based entirely on the metrics of conditional happiness.
If he had experienced the enduring, unconditional joy that arises spontaneously, the kind accessed and sustained through conscious sleep or meditation, he wouldn't have seen life as a trap between pain and boredom.
Exactly. He would have recognized that a foundational joy exists completely independent of that pendulum.
And realizing that joy can exist independently leads directly to freedom from attachment. Because conditional happiness inherently breeds attachment, doesn't it?
Completely. If your joy relies on your bank account, you are fiercely attached to your money. Parents worry endlessly about their children's success. Business people worry about their profits.
Students obsess over their grades. When your joy depends entirely on external variables going perfectly, you're forced to protect them.
You have to try and control an uncontrollable world. And that friction creates a constant low-grade hum of fear and anxiety.
Whereas unconditional happiness brings fearlessness, simply because there is nothing external left to protect in order to feel whole.
We see this echoed across multiple ancient traditions, actually. The Heart Sutra states, with no attachment to hold on to, there is nothing to fear.
That's powerful. And the historical Buddha is referenced not as a deity, but simply as a human being who completely freed himself from worrying and suffering through this exact unearthing of unconditional joy.
Right, the Buddha noted that all sentient beings have the Buddha nature. Stripped of the religious terminology, this is a profound biological and psychological statement.
It means every human being possesses the internal architecture for unshakable joy.
It isn't a superpower granted to a select few. It is our baseline design. The philosopher Wang Yangming echoed this perfectly, stating, everything you need is already within you, no need to seek outside.
Here's where it gets really interesting. Because letting go of attachment doesn't just mean we stop worrying about getting a bad performance review. The implications push into some pretty mind-bending territory.
They really do.
When we permanently stop relying on external approval to regulate our nervous systems, we start questioning the deeply held human constructs that govern our entire shared reality.
When your internal state is fully secure, the external rules lose their absolute authority over your mind. We adhere so strictly to societal constructs because we falsely believe that successfully navigating them is the only way to earn happiness.
Oh, that's so true. We construct our identities around national boundaries, cultural norms, career ambitions.
Family expectations, too. We argue over moral codes and legal systems as if they're fundamental laws of the universe.
But as you detach from the need for external validation, you start to realize that all of these are just agreements. They are just human constructs. You kind of see the code of the matrix.
You can still participate in them, of course. You still stop at red lights and do your job, but you are no longer bound by them in the same way.
Because if your career ambition is no longer the sole source of your dopamine, losing a job is a logistical problem, not an existential crisis.
The leverage these constructs have over your emotional state simply evaporates.
We've gone from the granular biology of delta waves to essentially deconstructing the rules of human society. It is a massive paradigm shift.
It is. But to bring these lofty philosophical concepts back down to earth, we can actually map this progression onto the literal arc of a human life.
Oh, right. There's that great timeline of life presented by Confucius.
Yes, it illustrates this progression beautifully. He described a lifelong journey of moving from seeking external truth to finding internal peace.
At 15, he said he sought the truth. At 30, he stood firm. At 40, he had no doubts.
At 50, he understood destiny. At 60, he listened with acceptance.
And then my favorite part. At 70, he could follow his heart's desires without breaking the rules.
That final stage perfectly encapsulates unconditional happiness in practice. It reminds us that true freedom isn't the absence of constraints. It isn't about running to the woods and rejecting society entirely.
Right. True freedom is an unshakable inner peace that allows you to exist comfortably within the constraints of life without being disturbed by them.
You can follow your desires because your desires are no longer driven by a frantic need for external validation.
So the innate happiness you felt as a kid on that Saturday morning hasn't actually left you. It isn't a casualty of growing up.
No, it's just buried under years of diminished deep sleep, declining dopamine, and accumulated worldly attachments.
But you can reclaim it. You can manually override that biological and psychological degradation by simply starting the practice of conscious rest today.
The tools for your own joy are literally already inside you, wired into your nervous system, waiting to be utilized.
Before we wrap up today, I want to pose a thought experiment based on the implications of everything we've just discussed.
Oh, I love a good thought experiment. Lay it on me.
Finding unconditional happiness means we stop caring about external validation. Right. We stop chasing the next promotion, the next luxury purchase, the next status symbol.
The psychological itch to constantly upgrade our external lives disappears entirely.
So, if a critical mass of people actually achieve this, if millions of us suddenly tapped into unconditional happiness through meditation and just stopped craving those external upgrades, what would happen to our entire modern economy?
Oh, wow.
I mean, our global economic system is fueled by our relentless pursuit of conditional happiness. The advertising industry, the tech cycle, fast fashion, it all relies on us feeling inadequate, so we buy things to feel good.
If we all wake up already full of joy, does the whole machine just grind to a halt?
That is the question.
That is a staggering implication. You're right. Entire industries are built on the assumption of our permanent dissatisfaction. If humanity actually reclaimed its baseline joy en masse, the fundamental engine of modern consumerism would basically collapse.
We would have to build a completely new society based on utility rather than desire.
Definitely something to chew on during your next meditation session.
Or maybe just the next time you wake up on a Saturday morning.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us on this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure exploring this with you. Remember to look inward and take care.
See you next time.